First of all, I want to welcome everybody here today. I'm Kate O'Connor, the Executive Director of the Brattleboro Area Chamber of Commerce. I want to welcome all of you, and we want to obviously give a special welcome to our guests today, Governor Peter Shumlin and Secretary Pat Moulton. Pretty much we're saying welcome home. I'm not going to take up too much time, but I just want to do a couple of quick introductions. First, I want to introduce the members of the Brattleboro Area Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. We have, I don't know if they want to stand, if they're too shy, but we have Jim Landrigan, who's our president. He's from Minuteman Press. We have Steve Cormier, who's our vice president, and he's from WTSA. We have Julie Hamilton, who's doing double duty at the sponsor table. She's from Brattleboro Savings and Loan. We have Vicki Case, who is, again, doing double duty. She's from WKVT, and she's our secretary. We have Lisa DiBernardo, who's with VSECU. John Newrock from River Valley Credit Union. Patty O'Donnell, who's taking a bite, I'm sorry, Trend Business Solutions. We have John Shaka, who's from Brattleboro Ford Subaru. Carrie Simmons, who's with New Ground Creative. Tristan Tolino, who is our caterer today, so I think he's in the kitchen, but we'll clap for him in a second. And Elizabeth Wool from Downs Racklin Martin. She's there. There are a couple people that aren't here, but they are here in spirit, and that's Jolene Belair from the Hampton Inn, Matt Henry from Lawton Floor Design, Steve Gordon from Brattleboro Memorial Hospital, and Mike McKinney from Entergy. So on behalf of everyone, I want to say once again, welcome. I want to do one more quick introduction, which is of our sponsors today. This event would not have been able to move forward without them. So we have Brattleboro Savings and Loan, and we have Dan Yates, who's the president of the bank here today with us. We also have Vermont State Employees Credit Union, represented by Lisa DiBernardo and some of her associates from the up northern part. And we have WKVT Radio again with Vicki Case. We want to say thank you again. This event could not have moved forward without you. I also want to give a special thank you. I want to give a real special thank you to the American Legion. They were very gracious in allowing us to use this space, and they've sort of suffered, or not, I don't know if I've bugged them, but they've been very patient. So I want to thank them. And we do want to thank Tristan Tolino, who has catered the food today as well. There's one thing that I learned long, long time ago, and that's that you do not say no to a governor. So when the governor's office called and asked the chamber if we would be willing to host this event today, without hesitation, we said yes. And Governor, there are more than 200 people in this room, and I've got a very long list of people that wanted to be here but couldn't because we didn't have enough space for them.
Do a second show.
Yeah, Hill said we'll do a second show.
Next week.
Yeah. I think the overwhelming interest in your visit and what you have to say today leaves little doubt that economic development is a real issue for all of us in Windham County. That being said, I'm going to stop talking because you don't want to hear from me. And I'm going to introduce, again, someone who needs no introduction because he grew up here, worked here, represented us in the Senate here, and now he's governor. And I'm sure he's going to come and you're going to tell us everything we want to hear. So let's welcome the Honorable Peter Shumlin.
Thank you. Thank you, Kate O'Connor. Sit down, enough of that now. Enjoy, eat, be merry. It is so good to be home. So thank you for letting me back into town.
I got to say a number of thank yous, most importantly to all of you. I'm sitting here at the table looking around, and you know, they don't let me out too often. Look, there's Liz Bankowski snuck in, but they don't let me back home enough. So Steve Morse is hiding over there. I'm just picking him off, but I just got to say to all of you, I miss you. It's great to see you. Thank you for being here. It means a lot. I've known most of you for as long as I've been on this earth, and I want to start by thanking Kate O'Connor and the Chamber Board for pulling this gathering together. Incredibly grateful to Kate. I'm the second governor to be able to say with total truth that I wouldn't be governor without Kate O'Connor. The first one lasted for, I think, 12 years. I promise you I won't do that. But thank you, Kate, from the bottom of my heart for all you're doing for jobs and for the Vermont Chamber. And congratulations to the Vermont Chamber for snagging a great one. Good work to all of you. And I'm also delighted to have with me my Secretary of Economic Development, who we all know well, Pat Moulton. And Pat's back. She's home too. I know that she's been home more recently than I have, and I'm delighted that I found a way to kind of pull her back for a little while, but I understand that might not be the subject we want to discuss today. All I can say is, you know, what comes around goes around. You stole her from me, I stole her from you, you stole her from me, and we'll just keep that going. But thanks, Pat, for all you're doing for jobs in Vermont. Now, I don't want to give you a long speech. Pat's going to walk us through a slideshow that's going to, or slide presentation that's going to help explain the process coming up. But I just want to talk a little bit. Before I do, I'm going to make it a big mistake if I don't give a shout out to the legislators who helped do the work to help us be here. And I just want you to stand up if you would, because I see John Moran here, and we've got the team from Wilmington. Come on, stand up, all of you. Come on, Mawicki. Who else we got? Tristan's in the back somewhere. The best state senator in Vermont. Yeah, right. Val Stewart, thank you. Thanks for all you're doing. Mike Hebert, back here from Vernon, who's working it hard. Listen, we came today to talk a little bit about how we can grow jobs, how we can grow economic development in Windham County for a change. And when I hear about the debate that we're having together, about how we maximize the possibilities in light of the challenges that we're facing, that's when I, you know, say, let's do this right. We've got a huge opportunity, and we should see it as that. As long as I have lived here, and it's been all of my life, we recognize a couple of things. Number one, we've got the most loyal, dedicated workforce of anywhere in the country. That we should celebrate. Second, we've got the most innovative entrepreneurs who care about community. And that's exemplified by the folks who are here today, many of who have worked really hard to get this blueprint that we're going to lay out. But, you know, and third, we've been facing some challenges. I mean, pre the closure of Vermont Yankee, we all know that there's been some real changes in the business community in the last 10, 15 years in Windham County that have really changed, mostly from buyouts and mergers and other changes that have happened around the country, that have really changed the job opportunities in Windham County. So, you know, my friend Senator Dick Sears used to call Bennington County, maybe he still does, the Forgotten Kingdom. I'm calling Windham County the Remembered Kingdom, for the simple reason that we've got a secretary, a governor, and a team assembled in this room, and some who couldn't make it, who want to maximize the possibilities, maximize the opportunities as we move from an employer that has blessed us with high-paying jobs for the last 40 years to a new future. So when I sat down with the CEO of Entergy, starting shortly after it was announced that the plant was going to be closed, and we had many, many meetings, face-to-face, always cordial, always helpful, and always productive. And, you know, we went in with a checkered history, let's be honest about this. We didn't see the world in exactly the same way for a long time. It was no secret that we'd been at each other's throats. And we said, okay, now that we have a similar vision for what's going to happen with the plant, how do we put the past behind us and do the best we possibly can, number one, for the 650 hardworking employees that have served this county and have served this plant with extraordinary distinction, and their families. How do we do the best for them? Second, how do we work together to ensure that as we see, several hundred jobs that are currently held by Vermonters, several hundred jobs that are held by the people in New Hampshire, and several hundred jobs that are owned by the people of Massachusetts, how do we turn that into economic opportunity for Windham County? And what Entergy said to me was this: listen, Windham County has hosted our plant with dignity for 40 years. We want to partner with you in ensuring that we do everything that we can to make sure that as we decommission the plant, number one, we get the decommissioning right. Number two, we obviously take care of our employees and partner with you to get that done, which we are and will continue to do. And number three, we leave as vibrant an economy with job possibilities going forward. That's when I pushed really hard for the $10 million in incentives and opportunities to help us fuel Windham County's jobs base. You also know that we got some money for renewable energy that I particularly felt good about, because when I wasn't in politics, through a settlement that happened with Entergy long before my conversations, you know that they agreed to help fund our Clean Energy Fund. I want to point out I wasn't in the legislature at that time. And I was a little bit ticked off that while we've hosted the plant, we didn't get some of that money directly allocated to Windham County. So this time around I said on our Clean Energy Fund, listen, Clean Energy Fund all good, it's going to be 50-50 this time. 50-50 to Windham County, 50-50 to the other side of the state. So that's a huge opportunity for us as well. But I want to focus on the $10 million. Here are the basic principles that I went in with as we went into this process and this opportunity. $2 million a year for 5 years, that's big for Windham County. The first is we've got to be as inclusive, as transparent, and as effective as we possibly can with this money, so that we grow jobs that would not have otherwise happened. And that's really the key to me. What I've said from the beginning is what Windham County needs to grow our population base, to grow our jobs base, to make sure that kids like me who grow up in this county can have the same kind of opportunities that I had growing up and building 2 businesses here, is, how do we ensure that we're not just priming the status quo versus priming new economic opportunity? I hope that that will be the goal for all of us going forward. Now, we also want to be inclusive, and we all know that it's easy in government not to be. So that's why we're here today. That's why we're back in the municipal building tomorrow, 5:30, with a meeting there. That's why we'll be back as often as we need to be to make sure we get this right. But what are the basic principles that I believe we should embrace? The first is, let's get as much of this $10 million out to job creators that otherwise would not have created jobs and economic opportunity in Windham County, with a particular emphasis on high-paying tech jobs, research and development jobs, and other jobs that pay above-average wages. That's what we're missing in Windham County. The middle class is getting kicked in the teeth. They're the ones who have been hurting for the last decade as this county's seen some jobs transitions. 2, let's make sure that when we expend those dollars, as much of it is in a revolving loan fund at very low interest rates, so that when new opportunities come up, we haven't blown through all the money. That should be a basic principle of our goals. Now, it doesn't mean we won't make some grants. We will, and we must. We haven't specified how much of that will be grants and how much of that will be loans, but my bias, just want you to know, my strong bias is, let's make sure that we use this in a way that gives us a jump start over other folks who are trying to bring in new jobs and grow existing jobs, and let's make sure that that fund is ongoing for future community leaders to be able to tap into. Let's not just blow through it. And finally, we've got to always ask this question: are we funding something that would have happened anyway? Or are we funding something that would not have happened otherwise? And I think it's critical that we use that as a basic measure for any judgment that we make. finally, let's not blow it on advertising, on studies, and on other things that won't create jobs. Let's waste as little of it administratively as we possibly can. And that's why Pat's going to talk to you a little bit about the structure we put together that's basically going to use state resources whenever possible to do the bureaucracy, the doling out of the funds, some of the decision making in collaboration with locals, so we're not spending money on administration. And finally, I'll say this, let's make sure that we get this right, because I don't think there's going to be another opportunity like this for us. So as we look around the state and we ask the question, what are our opportunities and what are our challenges? Opportunities are, right now, we happen to be the state that has the second lowest unemployment rate in America. We are seeing income growth, unlike most other states. We have a collaboration and a partnership on energy, on technology, on food, farm to plate, on all kinds of diversified tourism and other sectors. It's a really diversified economic recovery that we're seeing in Vermont. The question for us with this fund is, how do we maximize it to ensure that Windham County doesn't just get its share of the jobs, but that as we look forward 5 and 10 years from now, we can say, we turned the transition of the shutting down and a loss of Vermont Yankee into a jobs and quality of life opportunity for us all. That's our challenge. That's our opportunity. Let's not mess it up. Thank you so much. So I now give you Secretary Moulton, the second Secretary Moulton in Vermont's history of jobs. And she's going to walk you through a little bit about some of the structure, the design, and then we'll just answer questions because we know you didn't come here for a long speech. Thank you. Take it away, Madam Secretary.
Thank you, boss. It's a pleasure to be here in Brattleboro, and it's nice to be home. Nice to see so many friendly and familiar faces in the audience. And I too want to thank Kate for putting everything together. Kate and her board of directors for making this event happen today, and also to the sponsors, the Brattleboro Savings and Loan, VSE, ECU, and WKVT. So really appreciate all your support for us being here today. So I'm going to take this microphone, which is mobile, I'm told, and so I can drive my computer and talk at the same time. It's multitasking, and some of you who know me know that that can be a challenge. But first of all, let's just start with some basics. All right, page, go. All right, technical challenges, here we go. All right, so I don't know, and I hope everybody in the back can see this okay, and I know it's a little bit fuzzy, but I can't get it any more focused than that. But Agency of Commerce and Community Development, we are administering what we are now referring to as the Windham County Economic Development Program. And as the governor said, this is money that comes from Entergy as a result of negotiations that Governor Shumlin led to bring this funding here to Windham County, $2 million a year for the next 5 years. It is paid to us at the Agency of Commerce, and we're going to administer it with existing infrastructure. We are not charging any sort of administrative fees. This is all done within existing staff, and that's to make sure that every nickel as possible can come here to Windham County. So you need to know that. We're absorbing those expenses ourselves. And the process has really been developed based on meetings here in Windham County and a whole lot of public comments we've received from folks. And information about this program is available on gowindham.vermont.gov. So write that down, gowindham.vermont.gov, and we mean it, go Windham. So, let's see. Oh, come on. There we go. And as the governor had said, the purpose here is to promote economic development in Windham County and to try to make a direct link with this funding to the goals. To the goals that are in the comprehensive economic development strategy that this region has been working on for the last 5 years. That's a statement of your specific economic development goals here, but that mostly that this is going to lead to job creation, to help mitigate the impact of the loss of the VY jobs and help create a better than average paying jobs here in Windham County. And we want to assure that we're not duplicating existing efforts. As the governor said, we want to leverage, we want to spread this money as long and as far as we can and make sure it's actually helping things happen that may not otherwise happen. And that we're leveraging other existing state, regional, and local funds. And there are a number of local pots of money here that we want to make sure that we're leveraging well. So the funds are going to go out in both grants and loans. As the governor said, we have no predetermined amount of the, oh, come on, Pat, you can drive better than that. All right, there we go. We have no predetermined amount on how much will be grants, how much will be loans. That's really going to depend on what kind of applications come in, how well do they score, how creative can folks be in creating those long-term sustainable economic development opportunities. We have created a cap of 10% of the funding per year that can be used for marketing and planning. Sorry, Governor, we are going to spend some money. You got to do a little marketing to reel them in. We want to be able to do that, but we're capping that amount. We are doing loans for businesses. As the governor said, this money needs to rotate and be around for generations to come, we hope. 10 million may seem like a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not a lot. And so it becomes a lot when we leverage and we revolve it. And sources where you can go to learn about other sources of funding include the Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation, the Small Business Development Center, who can really help you look at, well, what other sources are out there that I can leverage with these funds that are going to be available. And the business loan repayment will stay committed and dedicated to Windham County. There will not be efforts in other parts of the state, despite their envy that you have this funding here. And we will do grants for other projects that may not be business oriented. Okay, oh, God, here again. Robin, I need you. There we go. So we have, oh, wait a minute. Okay. We have two primary threshold criteria. Each application needs to come in and show that it will promote economic development here in Windham County. So we're going to see, we want to see projects that are driven and targeted at economic development. Second, that the proposals will meet at least one, if not more, of the goals articulated in the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy. These are pretty broad goals, and they're goals that are prevalent in regional plan, town plans. I mean, they're pretty broad. Things like reversing population decline, increasing the number of well-paying jobs, improving the quality of the workforce, raising household income relative to surrounding areas. These are pretty broad. Any good economic development project should be able to fit itself somewhere in these four goals. The Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy goes on to give more specific objectives and strategies, and the more you can narrow in on those strategies, all the better. Other criteria that we are going to use to judge applications include, are we creating jobs, creating or retaining jobs? And as the governor indicated, the real target is above average wage jobs. But are we creating, retaining jobs? We're going to, oops, I went one for it. We also want to see, is there long-term impact? Are we getting a good return on the investment that we're making with these funds? Are these projects ready to proceed? We don't want to have funding go and sit on a project that's got 18 or 24 months before it's ready to be implemented. I'm completely screwed up on that one. Okay, then again, that we're leveraging other funding, that the county will be better positioned for economic development in the future, so that we're not back in this place. As the governor said, our issues in Windham County started before Entergy closed, or VY has announced its closing, and so how do we make sure this sort of structural change in our economic positioning is better? That we're addressing unmet funding or programmatic needs, that there aren't sources of funding for the types of projects elsewhere, that we are providing assistance to those who are adversely impacted by the VY closure, namely employees of VY. What can we do to support their entrepreneurial opportunities or even workforce retraining? That we are creating capacity and experience, that the applicant has the capacity and experience to carry out the project, that it is long-term viable, that it's not a one-hit wonder, that it's going to have sustainability and long-term viability. We also want to see that these projects are coordinated with local and regional planning. We're going to be asking for comments from the Regional Planning Commission and the Regional Development Corporation on each of these applications, and that there's a clear implementation plan, that this isn't pie in the sky, it isn't a wish list, it's something that's actually very clear how this will be implemented. The application itself, which we hope to have ready in the next week and a half or so, will have questions that track with these criteria that I just mentioned. We're going to ask for letters of support of conformance with local and regional plans. We want to know that your idea is actually something the community that you want to do it in is ready to host. So we're going to ask for those support letters. We're going to ask for an organizational and project budget, and then recent financial statement or audit if it's available, if it's applicable to a business or project, and that the outcomes are measurable. That's how we're going to know, are we doing any better? Are we better off? Is how much did we do? How well was it done? And is anyone better off as a result? Those are broad measures. There'll be more specific measures, I'm sure, that each project will develop, but each application will require, each grant agreement and or loan agreement will look for specific measures so we can see how are we doing. Now the review process itself is you start with the applications will all come into the Vermont Economic Progress Council. This will all be spelled out in application materials when we ship it out to you. The applications will come in, and the first thing will happen is, do these applications meet threshold criteria? Are they meeting one of those two thresholds? Second, we're going to ask our sister agencies around state government, folks like Department of Labor, Agency of Transportation, Public Service Department, to weigh in on these applications. Are there sources of funding that could be brought into the application that may not have been brought in that we could be leveraging? Are the projects reasonable given what these agencies know about other sources of funding or other priorities or other activities that are happening? We're going to do an analysis memo. We're going to seek input, from Wyndham Regional Commission and Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation. They are our two sister partner agencies. We've had partnership relationships with both organizations for decades at the Agency of Commerce. So we want input from them. It's very time sensitive. They're loving the fact that there isn't a lot of time to comment, but we want their comments and their input. Then we will do an analysis memo that will include comments from the other agencies, comments from the regional entities, a summary that staff of the threshold criteria and various scoring criteria. And all that will be shipped to the Vermont Economic Progress Council. And a word about BACC, as we affectionately refer to them. You have at least two, if not three, members, from Wyndham County who sit on the Vermont Economic Progress Council. This council has been in existence for a long time. I can't even remember, Stephen Morse chairs the council, but for these purposes will be recusing himself, but there's a couple well, if they are applications that are appropriate to recuse. But it's 20 years anyway that VEPC's been around. What they do is they are reviewing applications for what is called the Vermont Employment Growth Incentive. And so they're used to looking at business plans, they're used to looking at job creation projections. They know what's real, what's not real. These are not folks who are first time at this rodeo. They've been down this road many, many times before. The business loans will also go to the Vermont Economic Development Authority for underwriting and review. Again, VEDA, as we refer to them, has been around for 40 years anyway, and is comprised of business people from around the state and certain appointees, including myself and others, who sit on that board. They too have vast experience in reviewing business applications and looking at job creation and projections, so they're well versed, and they too will be using their existing infrastructure to do this review. All that will come back, and we will then make a list of recommendations to the governor, who will then make a final decision on which applications are funded. And we're doing this on 2 rounds of applications per year. The first one will be 60 days from when we put the final application material out there, which, as I say, should be in the next week and a half or so, we hope. And then we'll do another one in the probably the spring or winter time. So next steps from here. As the governor mentioned, tomorrow evening at 5:30 at the Selectmen's Room at the Brattleboro Town Office, we're having a public hearing to talk about establishing a revolving loan fund with the Vermont Economic Development Authority. Encourage you to come. I know we can't fit 200 people in that room, but I would encourage you to come and tell us what you think we should be doing around revolving loan fund, what kinds of tools. And this is a chance for us to be a little creative. It's not your standard loan. We can look at things like royalty type financing, which is near equity. We can look at things like deferred repayment or interest only. We can be creative. It's not your standard boilerplate Vita type loan that some of you may be familiar with. Based on the comments that we hear today, based on the comments tomorrow, we'll update any materials and process that may be necessary, and then we're going to hopefully roll this out. It says July 14th, the week of July 14th. It may be a few days off from that, but the application deadline will be 60 days, as I say, after that, so there'll be time to put applications together if you're not already thinking of them. They will be reviewed by BACC and Vita over the course of September, October, and then we hope to get recommendations to the governor in November at the latest, and hopefully he'll be announcing November, December. So that's the rough timeline. For more information, please come to the meeting tomorrow to talk about revolving loan funds. Go to the website, gowindham.vermont.gov. You can also file comments if you still would like to at accd.wcgp, which is Windham County Grant Program, at state.vt.us. And with that, I'm going to shut up and we'll entertain questions.
Go Pat. Cool. Are you going to rope it?
I'll do the rope.
We got a roving mic if you want to ask questions. Thanks, Secretary Moulton, for that presentation. And fire it up. There's no question that shouldn't be asked, I think.
Hold on, little roving mic.
Hold on, Kate's hooking up the roving mic.
I'm not the electronics.
Steve, I think you had your hand up.
Governor.
Sorry. Oh, what? Sorry.
Fire it up. Tell everybody who you are, too, while you're at it.
Keith Arnold from Dummerston. My wife Stephanie and I are opening Duo Restaurant in the Brooks House. Governor Shumlin, I want to thank you for your work on the Brooks House. That's such an amazing project and was really the deciding factor for our move to this area.
Terrific. We're glad you're here.
Thanks.
Glad to get Stephanie back. Besides, Colorado's an awful place to do business. Take it away.
My question is, you're speaking of, potentially new business and something that might not naturally happen otherwise. But as a business person that has just acquired loans, if you've got a viable business with a strong operator, good business plan, etc., there's low interest money to be had already. So where's the creative piece to really spark some interest and really energize the thought of this new business that wants to operate in Windham County?
Well, one thing we're good at is being creative. And, I think as Secretary Moulton suggested, we're going to be entertaining applicants from everybody. I'll just be really candid about you. It's probably not going to be the answer you want to hear about my bias. And my own bias, as I worked hard to get these funds for Windham County, is we need to ask at every opportunity, is this a creative option that would have happened anyway? Or is this going to bring opportunity that would otherwise not have happened? It doesn't mean it's to come from it doesn't mean it's to come from far away. It doesn't mean it can't be an existing business. It just means we've got to be convinced that we're loaning or granting money to creative ideas that wouldn't happen without this fund. That should be the criteria.
And I would just add that in that vein, this funding could be the last piece that comes in that makes a deal happen that might not have happened otherwise, and or make it more viable because the financing's a little sweeter, if you will. The package is a little better than you're going to get anywhere else. And we sincerely hope it does bring companies who say, there's a financing option for me in Windham County that I cannot get anywhere else. Or that existing businesses who might say, gee, I don't know whether I'm going to expand here or at my plant in China or somewhere else, is going to say, no, I want to do it here because there's tools available here that I won't have anywhere else.
It really does give us a leg up. Let me just tell you, I learned more about this as governor than I certainly knew before I was governor. I can't tell you how much time I spend trying to either convince companies that are here or convince companies who are not here that we're the place to come. And as a kid who was born and raised in Windham County, I always try to push Windham County. We've got challenges right now, let's be honest. You know, we don't have an airport. We don't have some of the infrastructure that they look for when they're moving from bigger places. This gives us a real leg up in being able to say, Windham County now has a plan that can give you access to capital that you probably can't get anywhere else in Vermont. That's a big deal. Yes, fired up, right? Kate, yeah.
Hi, a couple times, I'm Becca Ballant. A couple times you mentioned that you're looking for above average wage jobs. And I'm just curious, which average are you looking at? Average to Windham County, average to Vermont, average to the region? Because there are differences there, Pat, as you know. So I'm just curious if we could parse that out a little more.
You know, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not hung up on an average. I'm hung up on bringing jobs or growing jobs that aren't minimum wage or just above minimum wage. And, you know, that's our challenge as a county. It's our challenge as a state. Let's be honest about this. Is our challenge as a country. Is that while we're seeing a pretty strong economic recovery in Vermont, it's not being adequately felt by folks in the middle. So when you look at what's going on in some of the more vibrant economic engines in the state, like Chittenden County as an example, which I've gotten to know better than I thought I ever would, I can tell you that the jobs that they're growing there, whether it's dealer.com or My Web Grocers, I won't run you through the list, are high-tech, R&D, well-paying jobs that we would envy here in Windham County. And that's what I'm talking about.
Well, and if I could add, I mean, it's not, we don't have a hard and fast average wage number,
right,
but it would certainly be exceeding the regional average wage. We're trying to raise the wages of Windham County here.
Thank you, and thanks for coming, and we all appreciate the work that you're doing, Peggy Farba. Just curious on the rationale. You've drawn a line in the sand between government and nonprofits eligible for grants and business eligible for loans only. So kind of a follow-on to the first question, but you know, as a business person, most of us see the funding of looking for more rationale on that.
You mean why we don't give outright grants to business is really what you're asking. Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
You know, I'll let the Secretary answer that. I just got to tell you my bias. As a person who has built 2 successful businesses right here in Windham County, I'm not a big believer that an outright grant to a business is going to make the difference for a company. In other words, if things are so marginal that the difference between a really low interest loan or a grant is going to make a difference, I would just say my unbiased opinion as a business person is unlikely that business is going to survive whether you grant it or loan it. I don't believe in, I believe that a business plan has to be strong enough and good enough to be able to cut some profit at some point on its own feet. And therefore, in my experience, low interest or zero interest loans where there's an expectation that some other business person in the future can benefit from that same money is going to bring us more fruit in the long run than saying, here's a chunk of cash, it's yours, it'll make the difference between profitability and loss. I think that's a pretty risky business for government to be in.
And you know, the main reason is, as the governor said, let's revolve this money. Grants are one way, one time, one and done. A loan, whether it's zero interest or royalty type financing, which is near equity and repayment could be tied to a profitability level or a sales benchmark, helps get that same sort of grant type feel, but gets the money back to us. Now, and secondly, we're not saying, because I think, Peggy, you've got experience in the Working Lands program, and we would clearly look at a grant for supportive infrastructure like Working Lands does. For example, to start a business incubator, and you need some grant assistance to get a physical space ready to host new entrepreneurial, new technology-related businesses. Those are the kinds of things that are definitely a possibility. But for businesses, as the governor said, we want the money to revolve. We want to know that we're funding viable, strong businesses that are going to be here for many years to come. So we're open. And lastly, I would just say, I mean, we're not, the one main point I did not make in my PowerPoint, boss, is none of this is cast in concrete at this point. We are flexible. We're going to live this for a little while. Let's get the first round under our belt, see what happens. Where do we have to adjust? Where do we have to make changes? Where did the applications come in that we may not have anticipated and said, geez, you know, maybe a small grant program does make some sense, or maybe we shouldn't consider certain types of tools, or we should consider other types of tools. So we can adjust and change as time goes by. We're not ever going to say this is it and these are the rules and they're never going to change. We know we're going to have to make adjustments.
Patty O'Donnell.
Thanks, Rick. Thank you. As the governor just mentioned, my name is Patty O'Donnell. I am fortunate to chair the Vernon Select Board. Pat and Governor, I attended the meeting up in Townsend a couple weeks ago where, I don't remember her name, but
Noelle McCabe.
Noelle McCabe did a presentation on the matrix and how people are going to go about applying for these grants, and how a point system was set up, and innovative jobs are going to be high priority. I had a couple frustrations at that meeting. Number one, the fact that the meeting was held in Townsend, Vermont at 5 o'clock at night, when the people who work at the plant were 45 minutes away and many of them were still working. I think what Entergy did with the $10 million, giving the state $10 million is extraordinary. But they did that because they care about their employees, and that shows the kind of company they are. That being said, those employees certainly should have the opportunity to know about these grants. And when you think about the people we have at Vermont Yankee, they are the brightest people in the state. They have phenomenal backgrounds, phenomenal education, and probably have some great ideas on starting business. But if they don't know about any of this, they're going to be left behind.
Well, Patty, in fairness, that's why we're here. I mean, we're in Brattleboro. We'll be in Vernon if you want us. We'll go anywhere you want. We want to be all over Windham County answering questions and helping to be collaborative in figuring out how to get this right. So don't think that we're not willing to come anywhere that we're wanted.
Okay, well, my next point is that matrix system that was set up gave 5 extra points to any employee who lost their job because of the closing of Vermont Yankee. I think Vermont Yankee people should get priority, because that's what that money's all about. If they have a good business plan, they shouldn't have to take out loans. They should have the availability for grants, and they should get priority because they are the people losing their jobs.
Well, thank you. I mean, we'll take all that into advisement. And, you know, as the Secretary just said, none of this is cast in stone. But obviously, I can assure you that the reason that we're assessing extra points to Vermont Yankee employees just for that reason, to give them priority, and that is the effect of that scoring system. Having said that, we're open to other suggestions. If we see a good plan for a business from a VY employee, and, you know, this has happened in other parts of the state. As you know, IBM has moved in Chittenden County from about 8,000 employees to roughly 4,000. And those really, you know, smart, well-trained R&D focused folks have started some extraordinary companies around the area that wouldn't have happened had they not been at IBM, and frankly, had they not lost their jobs. They'll tell you that. So we should use a similar model here.
The difference is IBM didn't give the state $10 million. Right.
Well, yeah, we can argue about that, but they do a lot, IBM, and I wouldn't, you know, we're all in this together.
Julie Davidson, I was just wondering, concerning the grants, have you explored pay for success or social impact bond models to make those grant funds go further? There's a lot of innovation going around nationally with that. Particularly, there's an RFP that's been released for social innovation funds, encouraging states to move forward and accelerate the implementation. So I think there's an opportunity there to make those grant funds go further and ensure that they get funds as well.
Appreciate it. And the Secretary is madly writing, and we'll enter that into the conversation for sure. Yes?
John Wilmerding, Brattleboro. For Secretary Moulton.
There we go.
Oh, I see. We've had a couple of conversations about the Vermont Low Income Trust for Electricity, which you have helped to bring into being, and which benefits from another concession mandated by the Public Service Board to take some of the interest in the ownership of Belco and give a new nonprofit $1 million a year in revenue. Can you tell us anything about that $1 million that is now coming in, what the sort of expenditure profile is, and if there's any further discernment about how it is going to be used? Because the last time we spoke, I think you said there would be an economic development component, or there might be, and how well this could dovetail with this to give a special emphasis to renewable energy.
Well, I'd be happy to. I don't want to take a lot of time on V-Light now, but so John, maybe we can catch up offline. But I can say that with the dollars, we've done funding of weatherization programs. We've done funding through CAP agencies of high energy consuming equipment replacement models. We are also funding some work at Linden State College and their meteorological department to do work with IBM and others on the Deep Thunder project, which is really building off from our smart grid network for better weather predicted capability. A lot of profile of those kinds of activities. I think that those IBM and joint venture projects have an opportunity to create some jobs, and we're always keeping our eyes open for where can we have both an impact to low income and energy efficiency and consumption reduction, as well as how can we stimulate jobs. So those are the two major focus.
And I just want to add to that, it reminded me of something the Secretary said earlier, which is really important. I should have mentioned it when we started up. Whenever we talk about an economic opportunity in Windham County, I hope our next question will be, where else in state government or federal government could we get the funds to fund this before we go to this $10 million? Because there's lots of opportunities in energy, including some of the money we got from Entergy, frankly, half of which is going to go to Windham County. That's a big deal. That has nothing to do with this $10 million bucks. So we should always ask, we've got a good idea. We think it's going to grow jobs and economic opportunity. Is there some other place we should be going first, and let's use this as the fund of last resort?
Time for one more question.
Who gets it? The boss says one more. Okay, let's hear it. Okay, you're on.
Sally Fagley from Omega Optical. Governor and Secretary, I wondered, do you feel obligated to spend the entire $2 million in the first year? Or if you don't get applications for loans and grants that you find to be worthy, will some of that be delayed? How do you intend to divide the money?
It's a good question, Sally, and the answer is we absolutely do not feel obligated to allocate the entire $2 million in the first year. I think it's unlikely that we will. I think if we're going to maximize the potential for this money, we need to listen to each other, we need to learn from each other, and we should go out slowly, unless, suddenly something comes along that's so exciting to all of us that we change our minds. But let's go in tepidly and with caution, do this the Vermont way, common sense, inclusive, smart, and let's not go blow our wad because we've got huge opportunities ahead. So listen, Kate's given us the hook. Let me just say, I want to address one concern that I suspect no one's bringing up, which is, and I think I would have had it too if I was sitting around this table. Why the heavy hand of Montpelier involved with money that really is ours? Well, let's talk about it. And maybe it's a good place to close. Listen, I think the partnership is incredibly important. But I can assure you that as long as I am governor, the first priority is going to be making sure that we're listening to Windham County, that we're fully engaged in deciding with you what the good ideas are that are going to bring us prosperity, and then let's go after them like a dog on a bone. I'm not a passive observer to Windham County. It's not coincidence that we're seeing some revitalization downtown, collectively, all of us together. But I guarantee you that I don't have an economic development meeting with any company or any person without asking, you know, I know a great workforce down south that people often don't think about when they think about doing business in Vermont. I assure you I pay taxes here. I assure you that if you go up and down the streets here, you'll see that I'm invested in downtown Brattleboro, unlike any other governor in recent memory. So we're in this one together. Let's not let the fact that we are going to use, I believe, what's the very best about local community involvement in Windham County, and what's the very best about Montpelier, which happens to be an infrastructure that we can charge the administrative structure of this to get it right too, without taking it out of the pretty finite resources that we're going to have to do a big job. And that big job is to make sure that 5 years from now, 10 years from now, like Irene, we take a tough circumstance and turn it into an extraordinary opportunity. And we're back here then celebrating new jobs, new quality of life, and new vitality to the economy of a county that has been struggling for a while. Let's get this done right together. Thanks so much.